Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is October 14th, 2015. As we slip into fall, you'll notice we're going to be in a wet pattern across the southern areas of the state and a dry pattern, and we'll get to that in just a moment, talking about your aviation, marine, and public forecasts. When we're not on air, you can always get our information by going to www.arh.noaa.gov, or you can always call our information line at 1-800-472-0391. Be sure to check out our webpage if you have that access. Now, let's take a look at our weather for starters. We're going to head out towards the western areas of the Bering, where we're going to be focusing on this large comet-shaped cloud. This low pressure system is just circling here off the Kamchatka Peninsula, the center right just due west of Shimia. This is going to bring weather for the next few days across the Bering. So across the eastern areas of the Bering, a little bit of a break between another system that's floating down here towards the North Pacific. A lot of moisture is streaming up towards the Gulf waters. Out ahead of this system, you can see some moisture has been streaming through the day ahead of this larger system to the south. But as you can see, this large plume of moisture is on its way to the Gulf waters. Across the mainland, some breaks in the clouds between systems with mostly cloudy skies just to the north. Just quiet ridging pattern over the mainland. So taking a look at your surface maps now, here's that low pressure system that's approaching the Gulf waters, and we have an occlusion around this front. It's all wrapped up as it heads to the north. Now here's the rain that was occurring during the earlier parts of the day. It was along the Prince William Sound. Now there's a swath of rain from Prince William Sound back towards Kodiak Island, with some showers making it inland, light rain mainly along the south central locations. And then across the north, a little bit of light rain, but drier up across the Brooks Range towards the north and the northwest coastal areas. Across the eastern Bering, we do have some light precipitation occurring along a weak upper level disturbance, and with this moisture plume that we have across the Alaska Peninsula, enough moisture to get some light rain out of there. Now here's this other low pressure system off towards the west, and this is an occluded front as well. This one is at 985 millibars with very tight gradient out ahead of it, so they've been gusting out of the south direction up to 45 miles per hour across Shimia earlier today. Now as we head into the nighttime hours, this front is not going to make much further progress to the east, but will remain rather stationary while staying wrapped up across the Kamchatka Peninsula. So expect rain to occur across the western areas of the Bering and the Aleutians, and this weak front, or this weak boundary across the eastern Bering will remain in place, just bring some patchy fog and light rain across the eastern areas of the Bering. And then we have this trough that's continuing across the south central and southwestern areas of the state for the overnight hours, bring a mix of rain and snow across the western areas of the Alaska Range. To the north, we will probably see some light snow shower activity as temperatures turn cooler overnight, with ridging setting up across the west coast here. It's going to be quiet. The winds will be a little bit lighter along the Seward Peninsula. Along the northern tier of the state, some fog conditions From the Brooks Range, Arctic Village areas, we'll see some patchy fog, colder temperatures and snow. And then across the southeast, we'll see this low pressure system bringing that rain into the southeast. Along towards the panhandle, they will see the break in precipitation, but they will be seeing fog conditions set up late tonight and then also for the early morning hours. And then the low pressure system will be moving up towards the Gulf, and we'll see much stronger winds set in for the day on Thursday. The system will be heading up in the early morning hours, so expect gusty winds across the southeast up to 40 miles per hour, with the stronger winds up between 40 and 50 miles per hour across the north and western areas of the Gulf of Alaska. A little bit lighter wind speeds as you head inland, but still we'll see that light rain continuing across the south central areas back towards the southwest, with some patchy fog conditions along the Bristol Bay area. A little bit drier conditions to the north, colder conditions will bring some light snow across the Barrow region and just southeast of the Brooks Range. Now out towards the Bering, we'll see this low pressure system starting to make progress. So towards the Pribilof Islands, this front will be moving with a strong southeasterly flow out ahead of the boundary and a change of winds behind the frontal boundary out of the west. A little bit stronger here, as you can see, a very tight gradient just sitting to the south side of that low pressure system. As we head into Friday, these low pressure systems are still going to be wrapped up and staying intact, so expect rain to continue along the central areas of the Bering with some gusty flow out ahead of this system, and rain still continuing to move through ahead of this low pressure system in the Bering, and rain continuing all across the southern areas of the state, and gusty winds again across the Gulf of Alaska and surrounding coastal areas. Be on the lookout for a chance in the early morning hours on Friday for freezing rain, but mainly there'll be a mix of rain and snow as you head further inland, where the colder temperatures changes everything to all snow as you head up towards the interior. Along the coast, just some light shower activity for your Friday. Now, temperatures today got rather warm across southern areas of the state. Annette saw temperatures climbing up to 59. However, the rest of the southeast, with the clouds moving in, saw highs up in the upper 40s to lower 50s. All along the Gulf of Alaska, temperatures were well into the upper 40s to lower 50s. A big change as you head up towards the interior, with temperatures going from the mid 40s and quickly down into the freezing mark. And then at Arctic Village, they climbed up from 1 degree up to 19 degrees this afternoon, so a little bit warmer for them in that cold pool. Along the north and the northwest coast, they saw temperatures in the upper 20s to lower 30s, with Seward Peninsula just hovering over the freezing mark around 34. Across the southwest, they were slightly warmer, with temperatures all in the upper 40s, and the Alaska Peninsula was up in the lower 50s to mid 50s, 54 there at King Salmon. Across the Bering, you saw temperatures up into the mid 40s through the western Bering. Now for tonight, temperatures will remain nearly steady across the Bering into the mid 40s, and then across the Gulf of Alaska, we'll see temperatures dropping into the upper 30s to lower 40s, as well as for the southeast. Much colder across the interior into the teens, and then from the Brooks Range and north, a change of temperatures in the teens to the lower 20s, and then back towards the Seward Peninsula, slowly climbing up to the upper 20s. Southwest will see temperatures at or just below freezing tonight, and Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, we'll see in the upper 30s. Looking at your temperatures as we head into tomorrow, we'll see highs not much different from today, with the warmest temperatures across the southeast, upper 40s to lower 50s. All along the Gulf coastal areas, we'll see in the upper 40s, lower 50s. Temperatures across the interior, again, up into the upper 30s, and along the west coast will be in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Bristol Bay, again, up into the upper 40s, and mainly we'll see across the Aleutians temperatures in the upper 40s, possibly near 50. Your flying conditions for tomorrow is going to be around the low pressure system. It's the most hazardous, with IFR and MVFR conditions there. Across the interior areas of the state, we'll see some VFR conditions. except along the north and northwest coast. They'll see some patchy fog conditions. Patchy fog also be on the lookout for tomorrow morning, but should clear with a break between that system in the Gulf, and then we'll see also patchy fog there in the southeast during the morning hours. Looking at your past conditions, Anatuvik for tomorrow will go from MVFR clearing during the day, as well as Adigan will go MVFR to VFR, and Lake Clark and Merrill will both be MVFR, as well as Rainy Pass, MVFR. Windy will be MVFR, and then we'll also see Isabel going from MVFR improving to VFR in the afternoon. Mentasta will be VFR, and we'll see Tanita IFR in the morning improving to MVFR late morning, and then we'll see Portage MVFR to VFR possibly in the afternoon, but they might stay down on the east entrance down to MVFR for the day. Now Chilkoot and White Pass will both be MVFR, possibly improving during the afternoon hours. Now tomorrow's freezing levels, we have the freezing level draped across the Bering Strait here and all along the southern tier of the state, with the 2,000-foot level at the southern end of the state and increasing to 10,000 foot at the southern areas of the Gulf waters. And then across the Bering, we see the 2,000-foot level increasing as we head across the southwest and down towards the Aleutians. We'll see up to 6,000 feet. Now, for your icing concerns will be mainly around the low pressure systems out there in the Bering and the Gulf, with above 2,000 feet in the northern Bering, with above 1,000 towards the Aleutian chain. All above 5,000 feet, the concern around the low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. Now your jet stream is quite amplified, and so therefore we're going to probably stay in this pattern for a little bit as it dives very well south of this low pressure system here at 110 knots and sharply curves up towards the state around this ridging just to our east. Now looking at your 9,000 foot winds, here's this low pressure system with a strong southerly flow out ahead of it between 35 and 50 knots, and then along the backside between 25 and 40 knots. Weaker pattern across the interior areas out of the westerly direction and just off the northern coast there between 10 and 25 knots, strongest over towards the Beaufort Sea coast. And then we'll see this change of winds across this low pressure system in the western areas of the Bering. The strongest winds are here out in the western Bering between 25 to 30 knots. Looking at your 3,000 foot winds, very similar pattern, southerly flow up through the Bering, strongest closer to the low center out there, as well as this low pressure system moving up towards the Gulf, change of direction, winds between 30 to 50 knots around the strongest areas of this system. So be on the lookout if you're along the coastal areas. There'll be a little bit of turbulence as we head through the coastal areas tomorrow. And inland conditions, a little bit lighter wind speeds with the ridging out there, westerly flow across the northern areas of the coast. So taking a look at your turbulence, like I said, your concerns are going to be around those low pressure systems below 5,000 feet across the Gulf, and to the north below 4,000 feet with just a little bit of an acceleration out there, and then below 6,000 feet across the western areas of the Bering. Okay, in just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
Weather balloons here at Fairbanks International Airport are released by the Weather Service twice a day, and the timing of those releases are such that they are coordinated with all the other releases around the world. And that data then, which provides a vertical profile of temperature and relative humidity and pressure in the atmosphere, is then integrated into the forecast models run by the Weather Service.
How can you forecast the temperatures when an inversion is present? It is a difficult puzzle. In Fairbanks, often the weather forecast says today, clear skies, high temperatures from 20 below to 10 above, coldest in the valley and mildest in the hills. A 30-degree range. This is not uncommon in the interior winter. It's a difficult puzzle to try to put very precise numbers. We need a broad range because within that shallow layer, you go from such cold temperatures to such warm temperatures. That's just the way it is here in the inhabited elevations of interior Alaska. Well, anything you want to forecast, including a temperature inversion, has to be studied. You have to learn how the inversion works in order to forecast its future behavior. And part of learning how it works involves gathering data. And every day out at the Fairbanks International Airport, a weather balloon is launched. On the end of the balloon is a thermometer, up it goes, and we get the vertical profile of temperature in the atmosphere. And that's real good data. You can see the inversion with that. Problem is, the weather balloon only goes up twice a day. And for forecasting, detecting and forecasting the jet stream, which operates on broad spatial and temporal scales, twice a day is, for most purposes, adequate. However, down here in this fine spatial scale right in urban Fairbanks, we need more than twice a day to really understand the inversion, especially its formation and its dissipation.
So the weather balloons that are released at Fairbanks International are timed with all those other global releases, and they are not actually at times which are very dynamically active here in Fairbanks, which is another reason that we're interested in doing this experiment with an aircraft and also additional weather balloon releases to sample some of those more dynamically active times of the day.
Basically, in preparing the sondes, you have to take the sonde out of the package, prepare the sensors, and then you'll fill up the weather balloon, then need to calibrate the instrument inside. So that's the most important part of balloon preparation. So when we're calibrating the instrument, we make sure that the temperature of the sensor is realistic with the temperature either of the room or outside, wherever the sonde is being calibrated, as well as pressure, making sure that's at our level, and also the relative humidity, that looks realistic. We use these weather balloons that when they're filled up with helium, they're approximately 6 feet wide. And by the time that they reach the top of the atmosphere where the balloon pops, they're about 20 feet wide. So they're huge. It's hard to even imagine. After we get clearance from the FAA, we'll go outside, take the radio sonde, attach it to the balloon, and then make sure there aren't any planes going by just in case, and let her go. And the computer inside actually picks up the signal automatically. It'll tell you exactly when the balloon was launched, and the data will come processing in from there. After we launch the balloon, I'll go back inside the building and to make sure that the data that's coming in on the computer looks realistic, making sure the pressure decreases with height, the relative humidities look realistic, and in my cases, looking at temperature inversion, that the temperature is increasing with height. Typically in the atmosphere, we see temperature decreasing with height, but in these special cases, that's what I'm looking for. And then I can watch as the temperature progresses vertically into the atmosphere, as that sensor's rising, and I can see where the top of the inversion layer is. So the National Weather Service currently launches weather balloons twice a day, but I wanted to launch weather balloons more frequently than that to see what was happening between those launches. So I wanted to take a look at what's happening between that 4 p.m. launch and that 4 a.m. launch, and then what's happening between the 4 a.m. and the 4 p.m. So I launched these weather balloons every 2 to 3 hours to gain a better temporal resolution of what's going on in the atmosphere.
Our research asked the question, what will surface-based temperature inversions look like in Alaska over the next 100 years? And the primary tool for studying future projections are global climate models. In fact, they're the only tool. But they're not perfect for answering our question because we're interested in information over a city landscape scale, which is a few miles, 5 miles, 10 miles. Global climate models provide information on a 100-mile scale. So we need to get that information from this coarse scale and downscale it to a higher resolution so it's useful for us. And the way we do that is we take climate information from the global climate model and we feed it into our regional model, which has a domain over Alaska at a resolution of, say, a few miles instead of hundreds of miles. And the large-scale climate comes from these global climate models, and then we run our simulation over Alaska. We have done regional downscaling simulations for 20 years in the 20th century, from 1979 to 1999. We've done 10 years from 2010 to 2019. and then from 2050 to 2059, and 2090 to 2099. So with the regional model, we've taken these 4 slices over time, fed by the global climate model. And what we find, first of all, in the 20th century simulation is that the regional model does a much better job of simulating the vertical surface-based temperature inversions over Fairbanks and the other cities in Alaska. And as we go through the 21st century, those 3 other slices, as the global climate warms, we find that the temperature inversions in the lowest layer don't really change in strength. The strength stays the same, but the whole profile gets warmer. So this study provides a first look at what would be happening to temperature inversions in the future. We need to ask other questions like, how will this frequency change? Will they occur as often? Will the season be much shorter? There's a variety of other questions we need to ask to develop a better picture for how temperature inversions will change in the future. And our first cut answer that we have suggests that we'll still have to worry about the same sort of air quality issues because in the near surface, the strength of the inversion will be about the same.
And welcome back to the show. Now taking a look to the north where Barrow is, we have this little area of ice that's forming towards the west. We're expecting that to continue as the temperatures remain colder in this area. Temperatures are also primed with the water temperatures falling near -1 degree Celsius. So expect temperatures, the cooler temperatures causing the ice to continue to form as we head into towards the winter months. Now back towards the southeast for your marine forecast tomorrow. Look for gales along the outer waters out of the east direction between 35 to 40 knots across the outer waters with slightly weaker wind speeds around 30 knots out of the southeast towards the south Dixon entrance area. Across your inner channels, winds will be around 20 knots out of the north until you get towards the south, and then they change direction out of the southeast direction around 25 knots, small craft there, inner channel. Waves tomorrow will be between 4 to 5 feet, and across the outer waters expect between 13 to 15 feet. Now on your Friday forecast, a little bit change of your wind speeds coming down a little bit across those outer waters, between 30 to 35 knots with gales here just outside of Sitka, and then across the inner channels between 20 to 30 knots, small craft for much of the area tomorrow, with seas between 4 to 6 feet across the inner channels, and then we'll see between 13 to 14 feet across the outer waters. Looking across the western areas of the Gulf, we'll see gales as well here tomorrow between 35 and 40 knots out of the northeasterly direction. And a matter of fact, everywhere is going to see northeasterly directions with Prince William Sound around 15 knots, the Cook Inlet between 20 to 30 knots, small craft across the southern areas of the Cook Inlet around the Barren Islands and west, we'll see 30 knots. Across the Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound, seas will be between 3 and 4 feet. Elsewhere across the Cook Inlet south will be 9 to 10 feet across the Shellicop Strait, 12 feet, and across the western areas of the Gulf expect between 14 to 17 feet, the highest seas near Kodiak. And then your Friday a little bit calmer with a east to northeast direction for the entire area, small craft with some gales here lingering during the morning hours across the northern areas of the Gulf, and then a change of direction to the southeast just south of Kodiak Island. 4-foot seas for the northern Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound. Southern Inlet will be around 9 feet, with Barren Island seeing 13-foot seas, Shelikof 7 feet, and across the northern areas of the Gulf expect seas around 16 feet. On your Thursday forecast across Bristol Bay area and the Alaska Peninsula, a northeasterly flow. The strongest winds will be to the south, 25 to 40 knots. The strongest just south of Kodiak Island there. And then seas on the Bering side will be 4 to 6 feet, with the Pacific side seeing 8 to 14 feet. On your Friday, expect lighter wind speeds here, just small crafts to the south of Kodiak Island. And then we'll see 15 to 20 knots on the Bering side, 20 to 25 knots on the south. 4-foot seas to the Bering and 11 to 12-foot seas across the North Pacific. Across the Aleutian chain for your Thursday forecast, small crafts out towards the west between 25 to 30 knots, all out of the south direction. And then as you head towards the east, between 15 to 25 knots, with seas the highest out towards the west between 9 to 16 feet, and then out towards the east between 6 to 8 feet. Change of wind direction is expected on Friday, with lighter wind speeds mainly out of the south and westerly directions, small craft out towards Shimia, and seas on this day will be between 6 to 14 feet, with the highest seas out towards the west. Looking at your western areas for tomorrow, expect 15 to 25 knots across the entire area out of the east to northeasterly direction, and seas will be between 4 to 6 feet. On your Friday, expect winds to be strongest towards the central Bering, out of the north and northeast at 25 knots and 20 knots towards the west coast. And then we'll see winds strongest across the eastern Beaufort seacoast between 15 to 20 knots, and they'll be out of the south to southwesterly direction across most of the area, with seas between 2 to 4 feet, with the highest seas of 6 feet towards the Beaufort seacoast. And on your Friday, lighter wind speeds out of the south direction between 10 to 15 knots, seas between 2 to 4 feet. One little quick wrap up for your weather tonight. Front is heading up towards south central. It's going to be bringing some more rain to the south area for the end of your week. Have a good evening, and it was good spending time with you again. See you tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.